Okay, so we've been looking at the sweeping of the bell posture, rear hand and lead hand, and now we're going to move on. And the question is, well, what happens then if we start to change from hitting outside articulation to hitting inside? So turning the hand, using the articulation in the reverse direction, and that gives us the posture that we know as monkey climbs a ladder. So if you think of a monkey scrambling up a ladder, it won't necessarily be checking where every rung is, it will just trust that the rungs are there. And in a very similar way, if the opponent's got their arms out and we start doing an action not dissimilar to a monkey climbing a ladder, then our arms are going to hit the other person's arms. And if we add in some good reactions, some good fight IQ, and some drills that we practice so that we've got some go-to techniques from this, and some hit and stop, hit and flow reaction drills and so on, then this becomes one of the most useful tools in all of Yiquan. And of course what we're talking about basically is the parry. So there's multiple different variations of this. You won't always get this full articulation in. Mostly for push hands you would use that full articulation, but particularly when you've got gloves on, that restricts that a little bit. But there's multiple different variations, and it's such a useful technique because you can add it to other techniques, you can flow it into different postures. And so what I thought I'd do first of all is look at how many times I use a version of this posture in just one session, and how many different things I use it for, and also times that it goes wrong, and a few live points that we can point out and look at the actual practical live application of it, rather than just talking about theory or drills first. So this is a session where I'm doing kicks and punches, and the person I'm training is only doing punches, and that's deliberate, that's the drill that we're working on at this point. And I use the monkey climbs ladder technique quite a lot when I'm doing kicks, because I use it to set up kicks, but I'll explain that as I go along. And I'll enlarge and slow-mo the tracks so that we can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about, and pick out all these different variations and ways of using this posture and just how useful it is. So the first thing I want to say is that to develop good reactions you don't have to do anything particularly special. This will just come naturally as you do your training. Actually, it happens naturally if you just do forms training without doing any sparring or anything. But two-person drills will massively enhance. You don't have to do anything beyond that. It's like all these drills people have for reactions and for toughness and stuff like that. Just general training for the most part just improves all of these things just highly organically as you go along. We absolutely don't need to do anything. I certainly don't do any specific reaction training, and my reactions are absolutely on point, even for an old man. So on my intuitive level, I'm watching his posture. I can't react this fast if I'm consciously thinking about it. I can set things up, but to react fast in the moment, that can't be conscious mind. It's just intuitive, trained intuition. So I watch him change stance. On some level that's recognised, and I immediately step in and I intercept with the parry. But remember, that also takes your guard hand down, so you've got to be fast from that point. You've got to be on point with your reactions, so that little attempt to step in doesn't work. It comes to nothing, but I set another one up. I parry and I change it instantly into the push. And that all works because the parry itself pushes his body round, and then I see his shoulder and push just like in push hands. But he comes back at me, parry again, block, and we're out. Next, absolute classic, hit him with the parries both sides like you're throwing punches, but you're going for the guards and just patting them in. Just completely closing down his guard in front of him and then going for the punch. Skirmish and out. So this time it's a bit more conscious. I'm setting it up. You can see I'm setting up, push onto the arm, just make him bring his hands up through the guard and then use those to push. And he does exactly the right thing. Must have a good teacher, because he just comes straight back at me. He mustn't have got that memo that says when you push you should just give in. But my arms are already up, so I can just parry down and just close that down. And you can see that on this side I'm actually not open on that. I mean, I'm open, but I've got his arm, so he'd have to come out and under, which he can do of course, but in that split second I've just got his arm parried down. And this time a very similar posture, but notice that sometimes I have to push right in like a big slap in. That's because I want to put more pressure on the whole body, not just on the limb. So I hit him with like a big slap. Okay, next I use a classic tactic to tempt him in with the jab. Hands down, body swaying. Come on, hit me. Jab comes in, check in, just close down that lead hand and then change into the double push. Absolutely classic, perfectly timed. Comes back at me, but too late. I've won that encounter. Okay, next he tries to fake me, but then he doesn't commit to the follow-up, so I'm expecting it. I go for the parry and then catch. So just catch in there and then into the oblique kick. So it's still the same posture, I've just added in the other hand. And then one of the things I always want with a posture like this, when I just push the guard across like that, is to open up the side of the opponent's body. So look how open he is there just for the kick. I do that all the time, as you'll see. Of course, you know, if people are studying videos of me, they can learn to counter that, but that's not the point, is it? Most people just aren't doing that. If so, I've got counters, don't worry. And you can also tell by the way how far he would move if I really put that in. I mean, he would just topple over. Again, same principle, different kick. So I'm stalking, I'm setting him up. I'm psyching him out with a stop because I'm letting him know that I'm coming in. So I'm just putting the fear on him. Slap the hand across and then in with the low round kick. In this case, I want his attention on the arm. I want to just distract his attention to the arm for a split second. So I want to hit it in so that his attention goes there. And it just turns him enough so that to react to it, to counter. See, it just turns him to the side enough as he's stepping back just to open up the side and then go in for the low kick. So I've won. And remember, this is all coaching sparring, and usually the athlete is quite exhausted when they're sparring with me. That's what I have as an advantage as an old man. So yeah, see that? I'm tempting him in. I'm just expecting the jab leaning back. See, I'm stalking and moving. I'm obviously going to go for it. So I go for the pat again, low kick, and then the sneaky 1-2 with the punch right on the chin. So he's got to bring himself back, pat again, and then I go for the low leg sweep. And that pisses him off, so in he comes, gets his energy back to try and push me. That's what you've got to do. You've got to bully people back, otherwise you'll just get routed. Yeah, one of the big lessons here is don't just stand there. Even if you're tired, you've got to keep sharp. Don't just stand there like he does. So I come in, hit 1-2, then he just stands there. So I just go in again. Don't just stand there. Next, I stalk in and I go for it, but he lifts his guard up so I don't get it. So I just change straight away into the hook instead. It's enough that it just distracted him. Now then, one of the things that we want is to practice to bring it to the lock point so that we don't overdo it. So you can see exactly what happens because I get it wrong here. So it doesn't really matter so much that I missed. What matters is that I massively overcommit and drop down. And what we really want is just the short, sharp movement into the lock point so that we can control it. And because I've got it wrong, that leaves me wide open. So the inevitable happens. The jab flies straight in, but using grandpa reactions, I'm straight out of there. But here's how it should happen if we've trained properly and we just want to bring it up to the lock point. So he's stalking me a bit, goes for the fake. I fall for it, but I don't overreact. And more than just not overreacting, I just do it right. I just bring my body up to the lock point and I don't go beyond that because you don't need to. That's enough force. So I escape the fake. But then he thinks twice about coming in again because he's very defensive. So I try and tempt him in by dropping my hands, give him a little bit of a dig, try and wind him up a little bit and make him come in. That's what you've got to do with a very defensive fighter. But he's still hanging off, so I think I'm gonna go in again. So I go in for the same thing. Oh, and just missed the scoop. And because it was going to be a bigger movement, I've had to abort it and it left me kind of right in the middle of nowhere. Then next I'm moving maybe a bit too close. You're quite open because you're going for this guard breaking technique. And I go for it because I think he's going to punch and he doesn't go for it. So I just have to abort the movement and back off. Oh, there it is. Next, there's a fine line between faking me and doing the same thing multiple times. And he's being cautious because I'm massive and I hit really hard. And so he fakes me in and out, tries to skirmish, but then he's going to go for it again. And then I'm going to get wise to it because he's faked me again. I know he's coming in with the same thing. So there he is, he's in. And I just pat it. And then, is he going to do it again? put him under a little bit of pressure moving forward. He goes for something else, tries to go in for something low. It doesn't work, gets clocked in the side of the head. You know, and that tends to bring out the best in people, so gets clocked in the side of the head. I go in again, just pressure more, because I want to bring this out. There it is, there's the aggression, bring it out. Next, try to make him attack, so I'm opening, just tempting, just checking with the footwork, just see how he reacts, and then he's going to come in. I can see he's going to come in, then big pat on the elbow, and then hit into the leg. And then you can see he wants to hit me, but I've turned him round, so he's got to do this very odd posture to try and catch me, but I'm out. So this is an interesting one. So first of all, I fake him just to see how he reacts. Then he moves in with a punch, and I go for it, but I mess it up. So I have to change to this kind of bong sao posture, what we call hourglassing. So again, fake. Steps in, I go for it, I completely miss and go under his arm, so I've got to change and then hit back up with the underside of my forearm. So this one starts with a bit of flash, which has worked like once out of 243 attempts, but I do overreact a bit with the defence, so could have pushed in there. But I go for the pat down, just catch the arm, I actually do catch it and then instantly change into the overhand. So I don't mind a bit of flash myself, but this is what I call flashing Yiquan, so it's nice, fast, crisp, just takes down, and then straight away it's into the overhand, which completely misses. He's out of there, and I don't blame him. This one we don't really need a slow-mo. I'm doing my old school thing, and that leaves you really open, so I do it, you know, to try and tempt someone in if they're not being aggressive enough. Come on, I'm open, I'm doing my old school Yiquan thing, come in. So then, boom, boom, and then I get punched right on the nose for that. Turns out we do need a slow-mo after all, with a boom right on the schnoz. So this is what happens when you mess it up. It's fine to miss it, but don't overdo it. So see, I completely overdo it. I don't do it to the lock point. I just slam it down and get smacked right in the head for it. Now this is an interesting one because I remember doing it at the time. I go for two things. I go for the, see, I was going for it there. I go for it again, but then I go for the double arm grab, and neither of them work. And I just have to try and rescue it with the hit and flow straight into the jab. I think it's a jab. That's cross. Yeah, but because it's a cross, I'm too far away. So there's quite a lot of others. So instead of just slowing them all down and going through them all, let's just have a look at them all together as we go through and see if you can spot the different things that I do, trying to incorporate this posture.